Hey everybody, Kelsey here. It is Sunday night, about 7 p.m. here in Arizona. Tonight I'm going to be doing a special webinar for you guys, and I'm going to cover how to meal prep for $50 a week. So this is a topic that I know a lot of you are very interested in. A lot of people want to meal prep, but they're just really not sure like how to get started, or even how to build a healthy meal. So today I'm going to be going through a presentation and showing you first what are the essential components of a healthy meal, and then I'm going to show you how you can put together a weekly menu and shopping list, and then we're also going to go over some money saving and time saving cooking techniques. So I'm going to give a few more minutes here, let people jump on to the presentation. Thank you for those of you that have already joined. Before we get started, and we are going to have some time at the end for questions, so if you do have questions, feel free to write those down as we go along, and there'll be some time at the end where you can get those answered. If you're just joining us, we're going to be starting the webinar in just a few minutes. We're going to be going over how to meal prep for $50 a week. I am Kelsey, and I'm a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. I work with clients one-on-one, and I also teach a small group class just for women. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We're going to get started in just a couple more minutes, just giving a little more time for anybody else to jump on. If you're already on, you might want to grab a notebook and a piece of paper. We're going to go over a lot of really good information today. And for those of you that stay to the end, I also have a special bonus for you. I have a one-week meal guide for you to follow, as well as a shopping list that you can use for Sprouts, Fry's, and Safeway. I made 3 different shopping lists, so no matter which store you shop at, you can take that list there and find out how to make all these recipes in under $50 a week. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to be flipping the camera around to the presentation here. So here we are. Today we're talking about meal prep on a budget. So that's me, Kelsey Self. If you want to find out more about me, you can always visit my website, selfperformancefitness.com. So today what we're going to be going over are the 3 essential components of a healthy meal. And then after that, we're going to talk about how you can put together a weekly menu. After that, we will talk about some time-saving cooking techniques, so how you can actually do this meal prep without it taking like 10 hours. And then the last thing we're going to talk about today are some money-saving shopping tips. I know that's the main reason you guys are all here. You want to learn how to meal prep without it costing a bunch of money. So I'm going to show you how you can actually eat healthy and save money. So before we get into that, I wanted to talk about some of the benefits of meal prepping. So I know many of you are interested in meal prep, but you're not sure if it's really worth it to make that effort. So some of the reasons that you might want to meal prep are that it can save you a lot of time. You can do all your cooking for your whole week, for your whole family, in like 2 to 3 hours. So normally, I know most of us probably spend half an hour in the morning preparing our breakfast and lunch, and then maybe another hour, even more in the evening, preparing dinner. So meal prepping can really save you a lot of time. It can also save you money. So I'm going to show you how you can get money back in your pocket with meal prep. It saves a lot of time with the daily cleanup as well. When you meal prep, all you have to wash every day is your little container that your food was in. You don't have to scrub pots and pans every single day. Another reason to meal prep is it really helps keep you on track with your healthy eating. I know that for a lot of us, at the end of the day, we're tired. If we had a long day at work, sometimes the last thing you want to do is come home and cook. So if you have a healthy meal already prepared in your fridge, it just makes it that much easier to stay on track with your plan, because otherwise you might feel like you want to just go grab some takeout or run through the drive-thru instead of taking time to prepare yourself something. So it's really good for keeping you on track as far as your healthy meals go. So now, today, we're going to talk about, is it possible to meal prep on $50 a week? There's this myth out there. A lot of people think it's really expensive to eat healthy, and I want to show you that that's just really not true. So when you are creating a meal plan for yourself, the first step before you're going to do any kind of meal prep is you have to have a plan. So that plan has a few parts to it. It has the recipes and the actual meals that you're going to make. And then there's also a shopping list. And you want to make sure that you do this before you go to the store. Because if you're already at the grocery store and then you're going to try to figure out what you're going to meal prep, you're probably going to be there for a very long time. So it helps to already know what ingredients and everything you need before you even go to the store. So before we talk about how to put together the meal prep, let's talk about what a healthy meal actually means. So a healthy meal is made up of 3 parts. Every healthy meal has 1 protein, a carbohydrate, and some type of fresh produce. So you can see on the right here, we have several different types of lean proteins. Most people think of meat when they think of protein. So we have the chicken, fish, turkey, but eggs also fit into that category, protein powder, and then we have our vegetarian and plant-based proteins like beans, tofu, edamame, which are soybeans, and then also things like Greek yogurt and cottage cheese. Dairy is a pretty good source of protein as well. The next category that you need in every meal is some type of carbohydrate or starch. Carbs kind of have a bad rap. You know, people say, oh, I don't eat carbs, but carbohydrates are very important, especially if you are active and exercising. You really need carbohydrates in your diet. But when we choose carbohydrates, we want to find those whole grain, high fiber sources of carbohydrates. So like rice, potatoes, and that would include sweet potatoes. Quinoa is a really great starch. Also has some good protein in it, really great for vegetarians. You can look for whole grain pastas and whole grain bread. Oats and oatmeal, and lentils also fit into that carbohydrate category as well. And then the other essential part to a healthy meal are fruits and vegetables. So that's your produce. I think we all know what fruits and vegetables are. I don't need to list those out for you. But you want to fill about half your plate with those. Very important. And when we're choosing our fruits and vegetables, one tip that I'll give you is to eat the rainbow. So just try to eat a lot of different colors of fruits and vegetables. And every different color is going to have different vitamins and nutrients for you. And then the last thing down there are the healthy fats. So we do need fat in our diet. It is important. You can get your fats from things like coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil, as well as nuts, avocados, and also butter as a source of fats as well. So let's jump right onto the next slide here. So this is a visual of what we were just talking about, your healthy plate. So you can see up here in the top right corner, we have about 25% of that plate is filled with those lean proteins. And then the bottom right, we have our whole grain carbohydrate sources, also fiber rich. And then on the left there, again, filling about half the plate with fruits and vegetables. So now that we understand how to build a healthy meal, the 3 components like we just talked about, the proteins, fats, and carbs, now we can talk about building our menu. So this is where we talk about, good, I'm glad you're back, Lindsay, I saw that there. Sometimes we do have a little technical difficulties, and that's why I'm filming my computer today versus doing a screen share for you guys. I had a little technical problems trying to get online today, so we just went the old-fashioned way, and instead of doing a screen share, we're just videoing the screen. It works. Anyways, so back to the presentation. We're going to talk about building a menu now. So this is where you just kind of think about, what do you want to eat for the week? What recipes sound good? So just think about things that you can make, remembering what we just talked about, that every meal should incorporate those proteins, carbohydrates, and the fresh produce. So before you go about making your menu, it's important to check your calendar to find out how many meals you actually need for the week. If we have 3 breakfast, lunch, and dinners every day times 7 days a week, that would be 21 meals. But oftentimes we don't eat all 21 meals at home. You might have some dates planned or a lunch with coworkers, something like that. So you want to account for that and only make meals that you're actually going to eat. And then once you know how many meals that you need, I would recommend choosing only about 2 to 4 main recipes each week. Any more than that, it just really gets complicated. So just make it easy on yourself and pick 2 to 4 recipes. And the meal plan that I'm going to show you really only has about 3 recipes, so it's pretty easy. You also want to remember your breakfasts and snacks. Make sure to factor that into your meal plan as well. And then when you're building that menu, I'd recommend keeping those ads handy. They usually come in the mail every Wednesday, the grocery store ads, and they have all the deals at all the stores. So you can use that to see, what's on sale and also what type of produce is in season, because that's going to be the most cost effective. So right now we're in the summertime, so things like berries and cherries and peaches are less expensive right now because they are summer fruits. But if you try to buy those in the wintertime, they're going to be a lot more expensive. So definitely shop in season. You also would, I'd recommend checking through your pantry, your fridge, and your freezer as you make that menu. And that way you can make sure to incorporate, any leftover items you have, like maybe you have some frozen fish or a can of beans in the pantry that you can work into your meal plan. Another thing to consider is what parts of your meal plan can be used in more than one recipe. So for example, you might make a big batch of quinoa, and you could put that quinoa on your salads at lunch. You could make a really nice salad with some chicken, some spinach, put some quinoa on there, and things like that. And then you could also have the quinoa as a side dish at dinner. So that's what I mean by those double duty foods or ingredient overlaps, basically ingredients that can be in more than one recipe. So once you have your recipes selected, and you kind of know what you want to do for the week, then you want to write it out. If you try and keep it all in your head, you're probably going to forget some things. So you want to write it out. And here's an example. So this is way more complicated than what you guys really need to do. And this is actually the free meal plan that I'm going to give you guys if you stay till the end today. So you can see how I have it broken up by breakfast and then lunch, the different days of the week. So you could just sketch this out real quick on a piece of paper and make it a lot more simple. Just kind of say on Monday for breakfast, we're going to have omelets. For lunch, we're going to have taco salad, something like that. It doesn't need to be this complicated. So once you have those recipes selected, from there you can create your shopping list. So first, find the recipes that you're going to use. The internet is a great source. You really don't need a cookbook anymore. You can find a million recipes for anything that you want to make online. So just select the recipes that you're going to use, and then start making a list of all the ingredients in those recipes. As you're making your list, you might want to organize it by the sections of the grocery store, like the produce section, dairy, meat, etc. That'll help you save a lot of time when you're shopping if your list is organized. You also want to make sure you put the quantities on there of what you need so that you have enough. And then again, I'd recommend after you make that shopping list, quickly look through your pantry, fridge, and freezer just to make sure you don't already have any of those ingredients. Because you might have forgot, maybe you have an onion hiding back in the pantry or something like that that you can use instead of buying a new one. So, and to help you, there's also a lot of really great tools online and on your phone for making a grocery list. You can go to the grocery store websites. For example, this is the Fry's website right here. So it allows you to build a website or a shopping list either on their website or on your phone. You can see at the top here, you just kind of type in what you're looking for and then you hit search and it'll bring up all the different options. You can just add that to your list and then it'll give you a subtotal right over there to see if you're keeping on budget. And then when you're at the store at Fry's later, you can pull this list up on your phone. So that's one way you can do it. A lot of the other grocery stores do have features like this as well. Some of them have apps, like Safeway has an app that you can download on your phone. You could also keep your shopping list on Google Drive. And then there's other family apps that allow you to share grocery lists. So you can look into things like that as well. Those can be helpful if you have a big family or if more than one person is doing the shopping. So, or you can just do it old school, get a piece of pen and paper, that works just fine. So again, here's that little Fry's shopping list. So take advantage of things like this. Also, when you go to these websites and the grocery store apps, you'll find a lot of coupons on there that you might not find elsewhere. So here is my shopping list. You can see we have 3 different stores. I have Safeway, Fry's, and Sprouts. And what I did is for that meal plan that I showed you guys earlier, yes, the grocery stores really have come a long way with their service. They have made it a lot easier for you. And you can even shop online now. You can make your list online and have your groceries delivered. So you don't even have to go to the store anymore. But here's the list. So you can see I kind of price compared at each store to make sure that you are able to stay within this $50 budget at some of the main stores that we have here in Arizona. I'm sorry for those of you that live elsewhere, but it's pretty much the same at all the stores you go to. So prices are very similar. Some stores do have better deals in certain areas than others. For example, Sprouts tends to have good deals on produce. So anyways, here's my shopping list. And again, yours does not need to be this complicated at all. I just did this for the purposes of this webinar so that you guys can see the price comparison. Your list would just be a lot more simple. It would really just have the ingredients and the quantities. So once you have that list, you can go shopping, and then you're going to get home and you're going to have all this food. So before you start meal prepping, you really want to think about how you're going to do it and kind of come up with a plan. So some things that you want to consider are what is going to take the longest. So usually that's your meats and your grains. So whatever is going to take the longest, and by grains I mean like the rice and the quinoa, things like that. So those things that take longer, you want to get those started first. You also want to think about, like, are there things that you can put in the oven at the same time to speed it up and also, minimize your use of electricity and keep your house a little cooler here in the summertime. So for example, let's say you're going to make some baked chicken and you're also making sweet potatoes. You can just bake that all in the oven at the same time. Another thing, if you have any gadgets like a rice cooker or a crock pot, I highly recommend using those. Definitely makes your meal prep a lot easier as well, especially a rice cooker. If you don't have one, they're only about $30. That is something that is really great, and I really enjoy using with my meal prep. You can cook quinoa and oatmeal in it too. You can even steam fish in most of the modern day rice cookers. So that's a great tool to have. But you don't need it. You can do that. You can cook your rice just on the stove. And then the last thing you want to think about is, when are you going to do your cooking? So typically with meal prep, a lot of people will do a lot of it on Sunday. And because that just makes the most sense, most of us work Monday through Friday. So on Sunday is a good time to kind of get everything ready for the week ahead. And there's 2 ways of doing it. You can prep all your food for the week at once. Or what a lot of people do is they do the majority of it on Sunday or whatever their day off is. And then midway through the week, say on Wednesday, they do like a mini prep where they make a few additional items. So you just want to think about these things and kind of come up with a plan for how you're going to cook everything. All right, and now it's time to cook. So make sure you read all of the recipes through all the way so you understand all of the steps, and that way if you have any questions, you can clear those up before you start cooking. And again, that's also just going to help you save time. For example, a lot of recipes go very fast, and they might say that, you should throw the onions in the pan, cook them for 2 minutes, and then add in the bell peppers immediately after that. And if you don't have those bell peppers chopped up and ready to go, you might not be able to get that done in 2 minutes. So you want to make sure you have the recipes, that you thoroughly understand them. And then get out everything that you need. So get out your measuring cups, measure all your ingredients and spices, get out your cutting boards. And then again, I'd recommend starting with those meats because they probably are going to take the longest. I recommend roasting or baking because that's really just the easiest way to do it. You can cook a lot at once in your oven, and it's kind of like you just set it and forget it. So it's a very easy way to do your meal prep. As far as your starches go, you probably want to start those next. So again, those are those carbohydrate foods like your rice and quinoa, and your potatoes. So you can simmer them either on the stove or again in like a rice cooker, or if you're doing potatoes, you can bake them. And then once you have that stuff all cooking away, you can work on your produce. Produce usually cooks the fastest, so we can do that the last thing. If you're going to have any raw vegetables throughout the week, like let's say you're going to have some carrots and celery sticks for your snack, you can just chop those up. Make sure that they're really dry before you store them. Pat them dry with a paper towel and store them in little plastic baggies or containers. And then with your cooked vegetables, I'd recommend either steaming or roasting them. You can roast a bunch of vegetables. You can even do, 2 different types on the same pan. You could, like, let's say you're going to have some vegetables maybe seasoned with olive oil and garlic, and then you're going to have some other vegetables seasoned in a different manner. You could just wrap each type of vegetable in a little foil packet and then set the foil packet side by side on one pan and cook them at the same time. All right, so that's some cooking tips for you guys. And once you're done cooking, the next step is to store everything for your meal prep. So when everything's almost done cooking, you can get out some containers. You can get really inexpensive containers at like Walmart, places like that, even the dollar store. I really recommend using the glass containers. I do like those better with the snap lids just because they're easier to heat up. You can't heat up all plastic containers, so that's something you might want to consider when you're buying your containers, especially if you're going to be bringing them to work. You don't want to have to transfer that food to a different plate, so want to make sure you get containers that are microwave friendly and dishwasher safe. But once you have those containers, you can pre-portion the food out. Oh yeah, that is a really good tip. We just had a tip come in about roasting vegetables on the barbecue. That's a great way to do it. Also, again, in the summer because it keeps the heat out of your house. So you can make those foil packets as well. So once you have your containers, I would just lay them all out kind of like in a row. And then you can kind of just like drop a scoop of rice in each one, scoop of veggies in each one, and then a scoop of chicken or whatever your foods are. And then you want to label the containers, especially if you have multiple people in the house. You can just use a little piece of masking tape and write their name on there, or you can label them for the days. And then organize your fridge. Put the ones that you don't need, like for Friday, way in the back, and the ones that you need for Monday up at the front. If there are any things that you're not going to be eating for 2 or 3 days or more, you could consider freezing them. For example, let's say you made a big lasagna for the week. You can cut the lasagna into individual slices, wrap them in foil, and then freeze them. And that'll help it last longer. Another way to help you save time during the week, let's say you're doing something like smoothies for breakfast, you can make like a little packet. So just take like a little Ziploc bag and then put all the ingredients for your smoothie pre-portioned and measured in that bag. And that way in the morning when you're rushing out the door to go to work, you can just pour your almond milk or whatever you're using in the blender, dump in that little bag of all your pre-measured ingredients, hit blend, and you're ready to go. You can also do that with things like omelets. Like if you're going to make a little omelet, you could have all your veggies for that omelet already chopped up in a little bag. And that way in the morning, all you have to do is throw those veggies in the pan, saute them for a minute, and then pour your eggs on top and finish making your omelet. Um, my last tip, if you are doing any salads or sandwiches as part of your meal prep, I would recommend waiting until the night before or the morning of to assemble those to help keep them from getting soggy. So you definitely, you can even keep it separate till right before you eat it. Like let's say you're making a chicken salad sandwich, you could just bring the bread separately from the chicken salad in a little container, and then when you're there at work, just go ahead and put it on the bread. So now we're going to move on to some money saving tips. So I know that's the main reason you guys are all here today. You want to learn how to save money when you're meal prepping. And we're almost done, guys. We just have about 5 more minutes or so. And then at the end, I'm going to give you guys that meal guide as well as the shopping list. So some tips I have to save money at the store. One way that you can do it is to set a limit for each type of food or category in the store. For example, like a $15 budget for fruit and a $10 weekly budget for vegetables. So that way when you go to the store, you just know you have $15 to spend on fruit, and you try to stretch that $15 as far as you can, again, by choosing items that are like on sale and in season. Again, you want to definitely check out those apps, the mobile apps and the online coupons. Some stores also still have like a coupon book, like when you go in Sprouts, they have a coupon book that you can pick up and tear coupons out of. You also want to make sure that you are kind of shopping around at different stores. I know that can seem somewhat inconvenient, but it can really save you a lot of money. For example, you know, I found that Sprouts has really good prices on produce, but when it comes to their grocery items, you know, and canned goods, things like that, they tend to be quite a bit more expensive than places like Fry's. So if you can break your shopping up at different stores, that's another way to save money. You can also shop in bulk, you know, places like Costco, and then at the regular grocery store, they also have the bulk bins. So you can check those out. You want to pay attention to the sales at the grocery store as well. And when things are on sale that don't go bad, for example, like canned goods or nuts or oatmeal, you can stock up on those. For example, like nuts, they have nuts at Sprouts in the bulk bins. Things like cashews and walnuts, those can run as much as $9.99 a pound or even more. But when they're on sale, they're like $4.99 or $5.99 a pound. So you could buy a pound or two of cashews, and then you'll be good to go for a while. So consider stocking up when things are on sale. Another way to save money is by going meatless. By having 1 or 2 vegetarian meals per week, you can actually save a lot of money. I'm sure many of you have noticed that meat is usually one of the most expensive things that we buy, especially if you are choosing to buy organic meat, which I do recommend in general. As much as possible, I always recommend trying to buy organic options. And on that grocery list that I made for you guys, I did a price comparison too that you'll see. I tried to include as many organic options as possible while staying under that $50 budget. And there were a few items where it was harder to do that. So I showed you how much extra it would cost if you chose the organic option. But back to this, by going meatless and eating some vegetarian meals, you can really save a lot of money. So think about that, consider that. Another thing that you could do is you can look into participating in a CSA. CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And what that means is local farms get together and they put together these produce boxes. And usually you pick up the produce box about once a week. Usually they are at a central location where you just go pick the box up. It runs about $25 for a box of produce that would feed about 2 to 3 people, and then about $40 for the box for the family of 4 or 5. And in that box, it will just be a bunch of produce every week from local farms. So it's a great way to support your local economy as well as get really fresh food. And then try new produce, because every week there'll be different things in there, maybe things you haven't tried before. And it's really very inexpensive. You get a lot of food for the price. So that's something that you can consider as well. And then the last way that you can save money at the grocery store is just by shopping with cash. So leave your credit card at home and just bring $50, $100, or whatever your budget is. Bring that in cash, and then when you're done, you're done. So that really helps make it easy when you're sitting there, deciding whether or not you really need those brownies or whatever it is. If you don't have the money for it, it's going to make it a lot easier to just go ahead and put that item back. So hopefully with those tips, by implementing those, you guys can help save a little bit of extra money at the store. But the main takeaway that I want you guys to have from this today is that when it comes to meal prep, the main thing is that you have to have a plan. So before you can start meal prepping, you really have to just take a few minutes, and it really doesn't take that long. I know that my menu looked complicated, but it really only takes about 10 or 15 minutes to come up with a plan for the week. Remember, all you have to do is just think of, what do I want to eat for this week? And then come up with a few basic recipes. And then once you have your recipes, make that shopping list. And then when you go to the store, bring the list and stick to it. It'll help you really stay on budget if you stick to your list, and it'll help you stay on track with healthy eating as well. And then the last tip I'll give you is never shop hungry, because anytime that we shop hungry, we are much more tempted to buy those naughty food items. So make sure you eat a good meal or a snack before you go hit the grocery store. So that's the end of the presentation today. I hope that you guys learned something. I'm going to leave it open here for a few minutes for questions. So if anybody has a question, feel free to type that in the chat box right now, and I will answer your questions for you. Do we have any pressing questions on meal prep today? I know that when I started meal prepping at first, it seemed very overwhelming because I was trying to make so many different types of food at once, and I was making 10 different recipes a week, and I just realized I was making it way too complicated on myself. So now I just pick a couple of recipes and try and think about how I can really multi-purpose items. So, and you guys will see that in the recipe guide that I have created for you. All right, well, I don't see any questions coming in right now, so I'm just going to move along. If you do think of a question, feel free to just type that in the chat box, and I'll answer that for you. So this is the bonus for those of you that have made it to the end with me today. If you just go ahead and, we just had a comment come in, not a question, but a comment. You can also use the parchment paper packages instead of foil packets to cook your food as well. That's a great way to cook a lot of different items, again, on one pan all at the same time. So you can save time and have multiple different flavors cooking. So for example, you can make salmon 3 different ways. In each little parchment packet, you could have a different seasoning on your salmon. All right, so we had a question come in. It said, what is a good substitute for meat? My husband is a meat and potatoes guy, so I want him to get enough protein. That is a really good question. So a lot of people, when they're thinking about vegetarian meals, that's kind of, their main concern is like, where does the protein come from? But plant-based foods actually do have a lot of protein. So for example, spinach, do you guys remember Popeye? And Popeye was always eating spinach and flexing his biceps. So spinach actually has quite a bit of protein in it. But in general, when we're building a vegetarian meal, a really good source of vegetarian protein are beans and lentils, and those are quite filling, especially when paired with quinoa or rice. So that's a good option right there. There are things that you can make as well, like for example, you can do like black bean burgers. Those are a really good substitute to hamburgers. They're spicy and very flavorful. So you can do things like that as well. So I hope that kind of helps answer your question a little bit there. And I'll just leave this here for a little bit longer in case anybody thinks of any other questions. You know, when you're really at first, when you're starting to eat a little bit healthier, you know, I would just really, encourage you to experiment. A lot of people think they don't like foods, you know, but they maybe haven't tried them since childhood. So if you have somebody, you know, in the house that's kind of maybe a little bit unsure of eating healthy, you know, just really encourage them to try. So you always want to have an open mind and just try some new things. So just going to go ahead and move on. So if you guys send me an email, my email is kelsey@selfperformancefitness.com with the subject line Meal Prep 50. I'm going to email you that shopping list as well as a meal guide that shows you how you can have a full week's worth of meals for only $50. So go ahead and send me that email right now to kelsey@selfperformancefitness.com. And then as soon as I get off the webinar tonight, I will respond to those emails with that meal plan and shopping list. And also feel free, if you think of any other questions, go ahead and email those to me as well. I'm here to help you guys however I can. And then if you want to follow me on social media, you can find me on Facebook at Self Performance Fitness. Obviously, if you're watching right now, you're already on there. I have 2 Instagram pages at Self Performance Fitness. And then I also have a secondary page at kself_fit. And that page, the KSelf Fit, is where you'll find all my recipes, like this one over here on the right. So that is a meal prep recipe I did with a stuffed bell pepper. And then I repurposed the bell pepper filling to make this lovely salad here. So that's one of the recipes that you could find on my Instagram. And then I'm also on Twitter at KSelfFit as well. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in today. I'm happy to have you guys here listening, and I hope you found some good value from the webinar today. And, you know, just send me that email. I'll send you that meal guide. And stay tuned to my page for future webinars and other things like this as well. Have a great Sunday and a great week. Bye.